All good.
When I think of self-made creators on the internet, sometimes I think of like the biggest of the biggest, the Mr. Beasts of the world who's hitting like 50 million subscribers and stuff. But I also think it's really important to look at like the micro communities that we have in esports and gaming and entertainment, right? And Call of Duty is by no means micro, realistically, but it's still its own community. And as one guy who's at the forefront of that when it comes to content creation right now, and that's me. No, and that's Mr. TacticalRab, who I've got me right now. Where did that name come from, by the way? I'm very curious because I've
No,
never
that
asked
is a good question. Nice intro, by the way.
I'm good. Yeah, I wrote
Smashed it out the park. So yeah, so okay, so I used to have a pet rabbit. That's where the rab comes from. And then tactical is so my name used to be the Tactical Rabbit back in like 2014. I used to make videos on, they're still all on my channel that some people have gone back and found. And the idea is it was like I would basically do gameplay breakdowns of like Black Ops 2 and other games around that time, and look at it through like a tactical lens where I'd like look at the different tactical elements of the game style and how to, so I would like talk about basically just how to improve, but not just tips and tricks, but try and give people some actionable advice. So that's kind of where it came from. And then I don't really know where it came, or I just shortened it to Rab. I think maybe it was better. I don't know. Obviously it's better. Like there's no doubt about that. So that's kind of where it is, but it kind of stuck. It's an interesting name. And what I find interesting is because I prefer it, well, maybe I don't prefer it anymore, but I kind of prefer it as one word. At least that's what I have in my YouTube name. But if you look at the analytics of what people search for to find my videos, 95% of the time that they search TacticalRab, they search it as 2 words, which I think is quite interesting, which I don't mind, but that's just how it is.
One thing I've been looking into quite a bit recently actually is like building credibility with your own name, and I guess it goes into like the whole journalism side as well, where like your response, your kind of reputation is everything, right? And your credibility is everything. But like with creators, if you look at like Warren Buffett, for example, like it's his own name, and like he's making these bold claims, and like his credibility and respect and trust is just through the roof because he's never ran from anything he's made. I'm not suggesting you're running from anything you're doing, but I just wondered if it was like a purposeful thing, like, okay, I'm going to get into creating videos. I need to make a name for myself. And, but obviously that's not the case. Have you ever thought about just like going by your actual name, or are you happy with what you've got now?
Yeah, I don't know if I would. I mean, I wrote some articles back in like 2018 on like COD Gamepedia. They did like some article stuff, and I just made some articles in there just because I was interested in doing it. And I had them as my actual name on there, just because I feel like if you do an article, it should be your own name. But as videos, it's an interesting point, right? Because in esports, it's not something that anyone does. Like if you make a channel, you need a channel name that isn't just you. That's just always how it's been. And that is a good point, because I look at like Jake Lucky and that. And obviously he's considered, people talk about him as Jake Lucky.
Yeah, that is certainly not his name, because he actually indirectly leaked it to me when was recording the episode.
Oh, really?
With him. Yeah, so I may be the only person in the industry who
actually knows his name. That's actually mad. I actually just assumed that was his name. Maybe I'm an idiot for thinking that was his name.
There you go.
Whatever. But there it is. So, but okay, even then, right? So it's still, yeah. I don't know if I would go down that route. I think there's definitely something to be said for having a name, whatever the name is, that's separate from an entity in that sense. Especially, I think nowadays, like the future of the creator space in these next 5 years is crazy, right? But I think you see, especially in esports, already online culture more generally, like you look at ESPN esports, which I'm sure obviously you talk about a fair bit, but I mean, you look at what they were doing on YouTube, right? There was a lot of resources going into that content, but I think it was mismanaged from a few different perspectives. And there's also just the way it's branded as ESPN esports doesn't feel in tune with the modern reality of gaming culture and news. Like even though Jake is esports talk, and I wonder whether when people search for esports talk, whether they search Jake Lucky or whether they search esports talk, but either way, he is synonymous with that name. And that's why it works, I think. But if he was part of like some sort of network that he wasn't synonymous with, I'm not sure it would feel the same.
Exactly.
So
It's a really interesting point. And then you've got like Corpse Husband and Dream. I think they are. I'm only just now like actually starting to catch up with like the content
Yeah, no,
creator space, but
same with
like
me. Like these
they're
last few
faceless
weeks.
entities,
Yeah,
and there's plenty of different angles to think of that. But like one thing I was thinking of a bit when I first really paid attention was the fact like that's not tied to them. So like their IP is not themselves. Whereas like my IP is entirely myself. Like I can't sell my IP ever because it's me.
that's a good
No one
point.
can be me. But like if you're faceless, if your name's not attached to it, if nobody knows who you are, then you can sell that shit, right? Or a corporation can come in the future. Who knows how the fuck this is going to go and go, okay, we're going to snatch Dream or we're going to snatch Corpse Husband, and obviously is the personality tied to it, and that's why they're big. But it's just an interesting thought. And then obviously like Mr. Beast with like expanding into what he's doing with the burgers and stuff. I think dope. But then there's David Dobrik, who I think is going into the pizza business or something in LA. So like
I'm sure that will happen more and
that's
more.
two different things there. It's like one's a brand, one's the person who's the IP, and they're both kind of going into like the retail
That's
space
actually
and the
really
food space.
interesting.
So there's plenty of different ways going on right now. And then obviously is the whole like what League of Legends did. I think they call them VTubers or whatever, where it's like they're just made up entities, like some AI, absolute fucking crazy, uncanny valley shit. Where they're not even real people, but they're amassing hundreds of thousands of views. And we saw how much conversation was. Is it Seraphine, the League of Legends character that they brought to life? I think on Twitter.
Honestly, I don't know, but
yeah, like they were tweeting off the account, like, "Oh, I'm feeling nervous for a performance and stuff," and it's like you're a made-up character. But that's just another interesting way of like, can we create virtual creators, and will we?
Damn, virtual creators, yeah. Wow, that's actually you've really gone and taken us down a rabbit hole right there. That's I mean, all those points are mad interesting. Like I feel like a lot of people, I think like 5 years ago, people were saying it was impossible to grow on YouTube or it was impossible to do anything. Like you look where the creator space was a few years ago and where it is now and where it's going to be in 5 years' time. Like the amount of room for growth and opportunities here is crazy.
For sure.
And I feel like a lot of, let's just say, mainstream advertisers haven't really realized the possibilities yet. And Mr. Beast is just going to blow him out the park. Like he's just gonna take over what a lot of these sluggish bureaucracies are trying to accomplish. So I don't know. The virtual creator stuff really interesting because there is some weird videos that get a lot of views, which are just like all AI generated. I don't know if you've ever come across like the news ones, but
I don't think so.
But like that. So weird. There was this like, did you know when Pharaoh, the Call of Duty player, like he passed away in November time? I stumbled across a video that was like the channel was called like RIP Vids or something, and it was like just an AI, I imagine, that had taken a story and had just pieced together a 3-minute video of like weird images. And like there was no way a human had worked on it because the words were super strange. But like this video was getting some traction and people in the comments were like, what is this? This is so creepy. But like I know that there's channels that do this for all sorts of stuff. And like I don't know if they necessarily have any future, but like people do this, and I imagine they just sit back and relax and make a fair bit of ad revenue of their bot just creating free videos. I know a load of like articles nowadays, right, are written by like AI, or at least partially written by AI.
We'd probably benefit from that in esports, and it seems like as a kind of AI replicator bot when it comes to certain types of content in esports right now. But
that is true.
I did tell myself I was going to be on my best behavior and not call anyone out this episode, because I definitely did in the last one with Jake Lucy. So I've already kind of broken that, but I'm not going to go any further into it. But so as we mentioned, like the future of creators and stuff, one thing, and obviously we mentioned it with Mr. Beast and Dobrik as well, is like expanding out from creation, or at least expanding into ownership, more into ownership, like having tangible assets rather than just your content where you put in an hour of your time if you're just doing a vlog like me, or some an interview like me, for example. Or I imagine your videos are somewhat reasonable because you can get them done on a daily basis, but then there are vlogs and obviously much more time costly endeavors. Like that's not the most scalable endeavor, but like owning something that runs in the background while you're asleep, that's very good, and that takes the pressure off, and they can just kind of create again if that's no longer their like primary income. And one thing you've done is, instead of At least at the moment. I don't know your plans, but or if I did, I would not leak anything here, of course. But you've like foregone and you are foregoing like joining any big network, for example. And instead you're independent, you're doing well by yourself. I assume your channel is growing, and of course there's now Breaking Point as well. So
that is a thing.
I guess I'd like to ask about your decision to stay independent. And I mean, you're a young bloke as well, right? How old are you? If you're
21,
you're 21,
yeah.
man. I see. I'm 5 years older than you. Like, and you've got a good thing going there, but no doubt that's years of hard work and consistency, right? So why have you decided to not take like the cushy opportunity of like,
sure, yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just like, I know what I'm
getting. No, I get
month.
it. Yeah, I get it.
And then we'll get into the Breaking Point bit after.
Sure, yeah. There's a few interesting points you mentioned there. I mean, start about the scalability point, because there's two elements to the scalability. There's the scalability inherent in making YouTube videos, in that I put the same amount of time in effectively every day, but either 100 people can watch the videos or 100,000, right? So there is some scalability inherent. I think like what I do is much more straightforward in that I think of a couple of ideas. I mean, usually I have them prepared and I have a massive like OneNote, right, where I keep things stored up, and not much has really happened lately. So I've been trying to weave in between ideas and pick things out. And then I prep the content, I make the videos in the morning, and then by midday I'm kind of done, and then I make them live at certain times in the day. So my schedule is pretty set. Whereas I think on a lot of YouTube channels, it's very difficult to have a set schedule in that sense. And I certainly see why that scaling into something else where you own an asset, like, I mean, obviously Mr. Beast, the biggest example, what he's trying to do right now, and like Reed and the guys are doing, is crazy cool and interesting. That makes more sense maybe in that sense. But to go on to the question about being independent, it's an interesting one. Like I watched the episode with Jake, and as he was saying about having the stability is nice, right? But there's an element where it's kind of risk reward trade-off, but there's also, you trade something for the stability in terms of potential revenue, right? Like I'm very intrigued at how, I mean, he kind of explained it, how he was salaried or whatever, but I'm very intrigued how that relationship works, because like if I was Jake, I would want to have some percentage of my salary which is based on commission, based on like revenue, right? Because why do I have an incentive to grow the channel if I'm just a salaried employee? Like that's why being independent in that sense is great, because all the responsibility is on me, which is scary, but it's also empowering, right? Because
you can compare it to like the music industry, where it's like you can either sign to a record label and you've got the machine behind you, or you can go independent, upload to TuneCore and own your masters and bet on yourself. And I think it's probably the betting on yourself aspect. It's like, look, like the opportunity for me to do what I'm doing right now. There's a reason these networks are coming to me, or like publications are coming to me, or people are interested in hiring me. So like, I'm obviously onto something good here. Like, am I willing to, is the potential upside of me staying independent above the stability and the lack of independence and kind of element of control over you there? So you could kind of equate it to music in a sense, and I've only just thought of that.
It's an interesting one. Yeah, I hadn't really thought of that before either, but I get what you mean. It's somewhat similar. There's also, it's interesting because obviously I love like what I do, and if I didn't love it, I wouldn't. Obviously it pays money, which is good, and if it didn't pay any money, like, I'm not saying I'd be making 2 videos a day, but what I'm saying is if I didn't love doing it, I wouldn't have started doing it. And as a result, it's not like it, I don't know, it's kind of a job, but I almost don't really think of it as a job. So I kind of, joining some sort of organization makes it feel like it's now like a locked in job type of thing.
Yeah.
And I was always concerned with like sponsorships and doing something like that, with you then have obligations to do X videos per month, and like, yeah, I've done X amount of videos per month. I can give you probably the exact number for the last however many months, but it's just having that obligation has always been I've always been a little bit hesitant to do that. And there's also like, I think it takes away something from your personal brand. It's not like you're selling out, but being part of another entity, it's not clear if that's a benefit all across the board. Like, being part of, let's say, Deserto as an example, is that beneficial to my brand? I would say no, right? So it's
okay.
Like that's pretty clear in my mind. Like Mike would have to pay me a lot of money to join Deserto because I actually think it's a negative on my reputation. Like, just don't talk too much trash on Deserto, but like Deserto have a reputation, right? Whether it's
Deserto are my employers, and I appreciate Deserto for looking after me and giving me opportunities.
I can say what I want. No, precisely. But like, Deserto do a marvelous job in the industry. I don't want to.
No, you are competing with them.
Stress that.
Like Jake Cookie said, you're competing.
Yeah, precisely. I would prefer not to join what I see as not like I see as a competitor, but like the way the space moves going forward is going to be interesting. Like, because there's a lot of other organizations that do news and stuff. And Esports Talk, they have their own website that make articles, and Deserto obviously does a cracking job with it. But it's like, it makes it too easy if I just join them. So I'd prefer to challenge myself further, which I guess brings on to breaking point.
Yeah. And I mean, it seems like you've kind of like fallen into like accidental entrepreneurship in a sense now. Like it seems like it's like ownership and like independence and like crafting like my own future and like a job when I'm finished with uni, whatever else I plan to do prior to this like blowing up and becoming a viable option for me in the future. And like I wonder, a lot of it has to be down to, as you said at the beginning, like the passion, like you being interested in creating the videos, right? If from day one you went into it thinking like, well, look, the end goal is to make X amount, or the end goal is to join X amount, or for this to be my full-time job, like, would you have gone down the path you have in the way you have and continue to do it? It's an interesting one. It's like passion versus like purpose. In a sense, like my purpose is to do this because I've told myself that that's the case, whereas you've just kind of done what you wanted to do, and that's happened to become financially fruitful, and obviously you made a name for yourself that way. That seems like it's obviously a more organic way of building yourself up, but it just seems like a real path to success. But you also can't teach that.
Yeah, it's interesting in terms of goals, because there's not like, that's the thing. If you set yourself a goal of something, then you'll find that whenever you get there, there's never actually an end goal. The goals just go on forever. So that's kind of I feel like if you want to do a similar thing or maybe make it as a creator, you genuinely have to love what you do. And the goal is not, like, there is no end goal. You make X amounts, or you get X amount of subscribers in a month, but it's like, okay, well, this guy has this many. And of course, it's not about comparing yourself to someone else. It's about comparing yourself to,
it's also really hard to not compare yourself to someone else.
But it's also impossible not to. So like, yeah, you have to kind of dive into that. But it's kind of interesting what you mentioned about the entrepreneurship aspect, because I worked, so I did 2 years of uni, and then my third year I worked at Intel down in Swindon, lovely place, for a year. Actually like 14 months, but I was only there for X amount of months, because then like in March, the pandemic and all the fun stuff that happened in 2020. So, but I think, I don't know when it was I really figured it out, but I really enjoyed my first few months there, because like in that environment, everyone's super friendly, like, but I guess I figured out that just being in that machine is just not, like, that's just not for me, right? And I think, it was made pretty clear to me, like talking to a few people there, that I should really try and do something more ambitious. I don't know. It's actually kind of struck me, because I remember I went back to Bath University to do like a talk about Intel. I think I actually went to interview some like second years who would like do some mock interviews with them before they went off to their placements. I came back with like a couple of people from Intel to run that. And they gave me, like Bath University they were giving all the interviewers some merch or like some gear type of thing. They gave me a coffee cup that said on it, "Think Ambitious." And I was like, damn, that's the Bath, like the I guess the motto. I'd never really seen it before. And it kind of struck me at an interesting time, because that's kind of when I'd been at Intel like 6 months.
Right.
And I was starting to think, like, what do I do next? Because people were talking about, okay, like trying to get grad jobs back there and stuff like this. And I was just pumping out a video a day, like, just is what it is. Didn't really care too much about the channel. The level of focus on the channel lately has been much greater. Because I mean, I was working full time. Like, I'd get home from work and make a video. That would be kind of what I did. But yeah, certainly these last few months I've been a lot more focused on it, and it's had good results as a result. And I kind of gone back to uni studying business. I'm like, well, what am I doing here if not to try and make something work? And you know, as little impact, frankly, as a lot of the stuff you learn at uni has, you know, it has kind of shaped my mindset in a way. So yeah, so Breaking Point, I'm not going to claim it as my idea or anything. I think Easy Mac and a couple of other guys talked about making something like this for a while. And the idea effectively is just looking at what HLTV have in CSGO and being like, why isn't there something like this in Call of Duty? Because I've always struggled for years finding, like, let's just say stats, right? Like, I want to know what KD someone had at an event. Like, can I find that info? Like, no. Is there a good way to track the matches in real time while I'm out or something? Like, not really. It's a bit difficult to accomplish. And are there really any places that consistently make top quality content that actually not only make content that people want and are interested in, but can kind of tell the story of the history of the game, which isn't particularly well documented? These are things where CS is a bit more ahead of the curve. And obviously HLTV has been around a while. So it's like, okay, can we accomplish this in COD? Is it going to work? Let's just try it. I mean, so we spent a little bit, we just drew up a website on Wix, like just as a beta. We just thought, okay, we'll just launch it, a few bits of content, see how it goes in October time. And didn't really think too much further than that, really. But it got great traction early on, and the website keeps doing better. And over time, it gets momentum on like Google searches, for example. The class setups have done really well, and just content that's geared around, or like at least geared to the competitive community, which hasn't really been tapped into before. And it's given me the opportunity to make videos on my channel that I've wanted to make. I've wanted to make videos for a while that have more longevity, that don't just die after 2 days, like my standard programming, I suppose, would do. And the Breaking Point has enabled us to accomplish that. And so that's kind of what, of course, the season supposedly is going to launch in a couple of weeks. And so we're planning to get a new website effectively rolled out for that, where we can start adding on to a minimum viable product what HLTV have, bringing in more things, and really making it a viable, not even like a competitor, but there's no one really that does this type of stuff right now.
Filling a gap.
And yeah, exactly. I think there's a lot of, there's just green space everywhere, like all across esports. And some esports are more advanced, some esports are less advanced, and Call of Duty's just franchised. I was highly skeptical. I'm less skeptical now of how it working in Call of Duty, but obviously Overwatch is in a bit of a mess. So, you know, we'll just have to see how it goes. But Activision Blizzard, they're pretty headstrong. Like they don't take much BS. Like whereas HLTV and Valve is a bit more of a free reign relationship. They can have an API on the back end. You know, this type of stuff, these kinks may be challenging to overcome. So I don't know if Breaking Point is going to work long term, but it's something that will certainly teach me a lot and has done already. And if it works, then great. And that's my mindset.
Have you looked at other publications in the space? Obviously, you say HLTV is like the model that you're going to, so I assume that's basically it. But I think there are lessons to be learned by looking at those that have failed. So Cybersport, Upcomer, ESPN, Esports more recently, as we mentioned, and then like VP Esports had Richard, Thorin, DK, a few others as well. Then that kind of crashed. It's still going, but it's just there now, in my opinion. It doesn't seem to make any noise ever. So I think there are certainly things you can learn from them, and a lot of it seems to boil down to esports just doesn't have the readership yet, or maybe focusing just on the competitive aspect of esports, which is something I've only just opened my mind to. That like esports is more than this at this point, whether I want it to be or not. It's like I can say,
what's your video?
Like I can say grass isn't green, But like, it doesn't change the fact, like, if I look outside, grass is green, right? So it's just like, fuck it, I have to just face facts. Like, there are multiple angles to this. And you look at the websites that are successful in terms of viewership and presumably revenue right now are Dot and Deserter, right? And you look at what they do, they feed esports content to a wider audience. That's basically how it goes. They serve like the wider audience as well as the esports folk, and that presumably actually increases the reception somewhat to what their esports content gets. So like, how much have you looked at the landscape there? I know you're more, as you say, like you've done some written work, but you're more on the video side of stuff as opposed to like written publications and like written work. It seems to be like the bread and butter of all of these publications. So I'm just wondering how much that's informed what you guys do.
Precisely, yeah. So we've certainly looked at, like, to a degree, like what's successful and what's not. But I feel like maybe the downfall of a lot of these other publications that have tried is that I don't really see what difference were they trying to bring to the space. Like, I don't understand how bringing more, because written content in general, as you say, unless it's appealing to a broad audience, is not going to hit the mark. But my videos in general appeal to a very narrow audience, but because I can pump the videos out a lot and therefore get a lot of views a month, it actually works out very well. So it's not necessarily about the size of the audience, because we're not trying to necessarily take over what Deserter were doing in terms of covering all the influencer drama and this type of stuff. We're very much, at least initially, because we want to build out something that works in COD and then see where it goes. And we definitely have a mind towards, bringing in some more casual audiences like the class setups and stuff, and maybe focusing on how, if Call of Duty, if the pro players or former pro players are playing Warzone or something, trying to make some content around that might be the way to go. But I feel like it should be possible, even though competitive COD isn't the biggest, it's not as big as CS by any means. There should certainly be, if you make content in the right way for those fans, you can get a lot of like repeat users on the site. So it's so we've certainly looked at what other people are doing. I certainly think we're bringing new things to the table than's currently available in the COD space, and I think Deserter and Dot absolutely serve their purpose, and we're not trying to compete directly with them, because written content in general is, I think it's a struggle. Personally, I wonder if the trend will continue, but I've always felt for the last several years that I would just prefer to listen to a video than read an article, even though I don't mind reading, but it's just like, I'd prefer Thorin to just tell me his thoughts in a 10-minute video than read like a 2,000 word piece that he's written, right? I think that's just the case of pretty much everyone nowadays.
Yeah.
And I imagine the revenue on that video is greater than what it would be an article on a site. So for a number of reasons, it doesn't make too much sense for us to push into that, like even just breaking news and stuff, because I don't really think we're aiming to do that as well as Deserter are now. It's just about bringing something new and then seeing where it goes from there.
Like, serve the core audience as well as you can, and then if the league does succeed in growing the audience, that's doing the job for you. You've already got that audience, right? And then naturally you guys will, most likely, if you do a good job, you will capitalize on that, and you'll already be there. You'll already have an established product, and that's how you grow. Like, the pressure's almost not on you guys to get the growth.
That's interesting.
It's on the league.
There's it's an interesting element of that, really, because I thought about that a fair bit, in that obviously the league should, well, I think there's more they could be doing to grow the league.
They know that as well. Yeah.
And I'm sure they'll get there at some point, but there's also an element of which, like, part of the reason I started my channel was to help people keep up with COD Esports and inherently grow the scene. I don't know how much I've contributed to growing the scene, and I'm sure it's pretty insignificant, but I'm sure it's at least, I don't know, substantial in terms of numbers. Like, there's a lot of people, a lot of comments I've seen that are like, I didn't used to watch COD anymore, but because of your videos, I can keep up with things, and they keep me updated through the off season so that I don't just completely lose touch. And there's certainly an element to which it's not like the pressure isn't on us to grow the scene, but by taking the responsibility on yourself to do so, then you'll make things better for everyone. So I've kind of been thinking about that as how, as Breaking Point, it's possible for us to actually grow the scene. And we were thinking maybe appealing a little bit more to trying to bring some Warzone people possibly into competitive somehow through our site might be a way we can contribute. But I don't really know.
Well, like Warzone's on the fringes of like competitive now anyways. If you look at like 100 Thieves, for example, with like Rated and Tommy, like that to me suggests they know something that we don't right now. To me, it suggests that. Whether it's like the league itself integrating Warzone like further into their whole thing. If it's like on a Friday or something like that before matches kick off.
Like a Warzone tournament.
Yeah, or like on a Saturday or something. I feel like they might have done. I know they've had like celebrities come in and do some bits and bobs when it was the 2v2 gunfight with like Michael B. Jordan and such. So I do think it's down to them. But like if you guys can do that, then that works. Like so there's no goal in mind of like, hey, look, we can establish this core product and then we can sell it to, if Better Collective are interested in expanding further, then we could sell to them like COD's another mature title like CSGO, right? Or
sure, yeah.
Or
there's always an exit plan, right?
Or we could sell it to Deserto and it could be like built into Charlie Intel, or like Esports may be interested. So like that is in mind. Like you've thought about it. I'm not saying that is the plan.
No doors are closed, right? Like I mean, at the end of the day, it's we're trying to build the best product, and then like I'm not going to be like working for this company or running this company in 50 years time, I imagine. So at some point there's an exit strategy. Whatever that strategy is, I don't really know. It's very possible that if exactly right, if we're successful in CODs and we kind of make things work in certain aspects, and of course all the people involved right now have been involved in COD for a number of years, they know what people are interested in, know about the scene and how it works, and the massive Twitter audience as well, which has been hugely beneficial for us growing the site. Like you don't even have to spend any marketing money if you can just blow it up on Twitter. So those are some of the things that benefited us. At some point, it may well be possible to expand and do these things in other esports. That's not out of the question. That's my thought process, at least, is to bring a minimum viable product to the table this season, grow it, make it better than what anyone else does, make better content than what anyone else does, upgrade it throughout the season, hopefully on a month-by-month basis. And then in a couple of seasons, maybe try and integrate some more casual, some Warzone stuff, see where we are, and then consider, like, what does it look like from here? How we sitting? Has there been major roadblocks that have made us crumble? That's possible as well. But as you say, it's pretty early.
It's just an interesting thought, but as well, one thing I did want to touch on is I definitely don't want to neglect like what you've built over the years, right? And look, like with the internet, a lot of what's happening right now with creators is the first time things are being done. So there's no real blueprint there. Of course, like you can see what one creator's done and try and replicate that, but that may not work for your audience and the niche you're in. So it seems like you just kind of have to work out what the fuck works for you, right? It's hard. You can have a mentor, but they can't give you the blueprint for success because also like algorithms change all the time, right?
Sure, and like that's a scary thing.
Audience, I guess, like the desires of the audience can change. Sort of something like the league going from an open circuit to a closed franchise circuit could change things entirely as to the kind of content like that they want to consume, right? So like how the hell have you gone about working all this out? Like how long ago did you like upload your first video, for example?
So the first video of this type was in August 2018. I made a video about the Black Ops 4 beta, and I just kind of gave my thoughts on it, kind of like how Thorin would do. That was kind of my blueprint, I guess. And there was a guy called Rondes Fox who was like a caster for the league, and he made similar videos. He would make videos when anything like particularly big happened, like someone signs a player, and he would just give his thoughts on it for a few minutes and do pretty well. So I think really it's a matter of just getting started. Like there's not really any other better way to say it, because you can do all this analysis and research and look at how the algorithm works and see what types of content people are making. But when you make 1,000 videos, by 1,000th video, you're going to be on the right track, right? So I think that's really the easiest advice because like my thumbnails used to be god awful. Like I never made them any. I mean, I still make them in Microsoft Word, but they're better than they were.
Yeah, wait.
Yeah, no, it's just a casual fact.
Use Word to do that.
Yeah, I make them all in Microsoft Word. It's actually top class. But like I have a 300-page Word document with all the templates and stuff, like images. I don't bother doing it in Photoshop. I could, but it takes me 10 minutes to make a thumbnail. Like
yeah, why fix what isn't broken, right?
Yeah, damn right. So, and they get better over time. And I've found like a blueprint that works perfectly pretty much over time. Like 2 faces on the thumbnail, make the faces pretty big, left and middle, something going on the right, some words at the bottom. Like, and that's just kind of by iterating it 1,000 times, you get to a point where you have something that works. And if things change over time, as long as you're really on the ball and up to date and keeping up with things. And as you say, like going franchise league changed things, like Optic disappearing, like obviously massive changes in the COD scene. Like, like really interesting, strange stuff to cover, to deal with. But yeah, like, I think also part of it that's probably helped for me, which maybe isn't always the case in other scenes, but because like the niche I'm in is it's pretty narrow. Like I'm basically one of the people that I was making videos for, right? Like I make these videos because I would enjoy them if I wasn't making these videos. Yeah. And I feel like if I didn't like the videos I make, then why should I expect anyone else to like the videos I make?
Exactly.
And that's the thing. If you start to lose motivation or you don't enjoy what you're doing anymore, then I think people know and they'll just go elsewhere or just disappear. And that's kind of what's helped, I think, me really learn what people are interested in, what they like. And yeah, the fact of the matter is that any drama, anything where someone calls someone out, anything where someone is angry about something, like that's just the stuff that does the best. And I don't always go into that narrative because you don't want to be incredibly negative all the time. But over time, you realize what works, what doesn't, what kind of balance to give to it. And that's a lot more easy to do when you're one of the people that you're making the videos for effectively. So I think that's really probably where creators see the most success, at least in this like middle class of creators. Like if you're a Mr. Beast, you've just tried, I think I saw your tweet today, you've just tried a million things, seeing what hits with like a massive audience. And like, and that's something that pretty much is impossible to do without trial and error. But if you're like in a niche, then you can just iterate and monitor. So
yeah,
I don't even know what the question was.
No, it's fine. Like, look, I don't want it to be so much an interview as much a conversation, And like, yeah, I think, and when I was scrolling back, I think Mr. Beast's first maybe 10 videos were COD. And then he tried other things as well. Like he was like just playing like here's a good game playing Terminal or something like that, I think it was like 7 years ago. And then he went into giving like the approximate net worth of PewDiePie and popular creators.
Wow. That's so interesting.
And then there was he seemed to offer like a channel update every 6 months where he's like, am I quitting? And it's like, no, I'm just changing things. It's like, look, like he was not afraid to like learn it in public and like maybe come across a fool or like maybe be seen as stupid or something to because he will get a better understanding through learning in public, right? And that's why, look, as well, like I just share my thoughts on Twitter now. It's free content. It's just like if I learn something, whether I was right or wrong, then that's free content and it benefits other people, benefits myself. I'm documenting it.
Absolutely.
So it's insane with Mr. Beast. Yeah, he tried. I can't remember which one it was first. It might have been like trying to count to 1 million first. And I think like the moment he got a sniff of like this being popular, he just fucking went all in on it. And that's how he found what was what. And it's just like, he just had to do some mad arduous tasks that just no one else was willing to do. Instead of finding a niche, he built a niche, right? And that is the best way to cement yourself as like a quote unquote thought leader or at the top of your game. Like if, and as you say as well, like if you're part of that. So for you, Call of Duty esports, it is a niche, but that automatically means there's less people to compete with. It automatically opens up the opportunities. Like you could be a top 5 creator if you decide to get into it today, because there's just not that many people doing it. As like Lando, but he joined Envy. Like Lucky will do it, but he's doing other things as well. There's yourself. There's like Crone isn't even actually doing video content as far as I'm aware. Don't even have a webcam. So like straight away, like you can become one of the top creators by like a technicality if you decide to enter that niche. Right? You know,
that's the thing. And I'm sure there's so many opportunities like that. I saw I used to swim competitively when I was younger. I saw my mate who used to be in my club. He'd started basically a vlogging channel for swimming. And I'd never seen anything like this before. I thought it was so cool. Yeah. Like just watching him like tour the world, train, and then like go to events and stuff. It's not like these videos are getting that many views at the moment, at least, but I'm like, there's surely no one else doing this. And I was thinking about other niches, like golf, I think has become massive on YouTube recently. And there's so many things that people can do nowadays to make it work. I think that Mr. Beast, obviously we talk about him a lot here, but the idea of like the expert in the field is the person who's failed at that thing more times than anybody else
100%,
has.
100%.
And like, that's incredibly evident with what he's done. And I think frankly, it's evident with any person who's ever created a channel that might have been successful. Like, and that's the thing with all this new content that I'm trying to produce here, like the 3 minutes in COD history and top 10 videos and this type of stuff. Like the content I make on a regular basis, I kind of know what works. I know it's going to get X amount of views in that ballpark. Accessible videos will get this. Videos that don't do so well will get this. But this new type of content, I have no idea. I'm just playing it by ear, and like haven't been afraid to make a video that gets like 3,000 views and doesn't do well at all compared to the size of the channel, because once I make that video, I know that I'm going to break down why it didn't do well and make sure
that's more valuable than the ones that do well, in a sense.
Yeah, absolutely. That's far more valuable. Well, not necessarily always far more valuable, but like
to you,
a lot of the time,
financially, but
yeah. A lot of the time it can be much more valuable. And I feel like if you're not experimenting with new things like that, then you're on the path down, I think. It's all about trying to ensure that the arrow of your trajectory is upwards. And if it's upwards, then give it a year and you'll be flying.
Yeah, man. So say like you're mining for gold, right? And you dig a hole down and then you're like, okay, I'm going to go one way. Like, what are the chances like the very first tunnel that you dig is you're going to fucking hit the jackpot, right? Absolutely. You have to be able to pivot and be flexible with stuff and just say, look, like this has not been done before, so nobody knows until I do it. And almost selfishly as well, like that enables other people to say, okay, that works, that doesn't work, and they can build on top of you, and that creates a better content ecosystem as a whole, and then you can learn from them.
Damn right.
And it's all compounds, you know?
Yeah, precisely. Like when I first saw Jake making these videos whenever he started, I don't know, like he's been making them for a couple of years. I think maybe the first one on Esports Talk is late 2018 or something. I had to look back. But when I was working at Intel and I get home from work, I'd make a video. I wouldn't really care too much how good it was. I could read the comments and stuff, but I wasn't like super locked in. But the amount that the amount that channel has pushed me to be better and to be quicker and to be better at the stories. Like I have an awful lot of respect for what Jake is trying to do, but if I like smash a video out the park that he or like his team maybe didn't like hit, and he's DM'd me to the same effect before, where like like he loves it when he beats me to a video, or when he sees me beat him to a video, then it's like, damn, I should have got Rab on that one. This type of stuff. And there's nothing like that to push your channel, to push yourself further and push your channel further as well. And of course he has his other focus. Like I'm not, it's not like if he doesn't make 2 COD videos a day on the topics that I do that he's failing or anything, because he's absolutely killing it with what he's doing. And I don't have an intention of going down that route, because as I said earlier, I don't really care what Valkyrie said on stream. Like I'm not in that audience, and therefore I wouldn't be a good person to cover it. I wouldn't be able to make good videos for myself as a fan of that, right?
Yeah.
So I feel, and yeah, lately the videos have been just doing better and better, and I think that that's probably a lot of where it comes from. Like Jake, obviously, in his videos gives more of a surface level view. I try and give more of the context.
Yeah.
And I think that worked for different sets of fans. And but I think that maybe over time, as fans become a little bit more integrated, they might further appreciate the context. I don't really know, but I had a lot of discussions really with myself about this. Like when those videos started doing really well, and like he'd make a video and get like 120K views on Scump Says Something. And I've tried to take a lot of inspiration from the way they title and thumbnail their videos. And I'm never going to be as quick as them because
they've got teams.
Yeah, exactly. But I can try and be the best at what I do, which is,
of course,
I think all you can aim for.
And I mean, like, as long as you, as you say, as long as you're doing what you want to do, like no one will be able to beat you at doing the shit you want to do, right? And it still feels like play to you. So like, it's going to be very hard for anyone to come and try and dethrone you. They would also have to love it, or they'd have to just be able to put up with so much shit. They must have like the mental fortitude of like 79 monks, like compounded into one. You know, it's just insane. But like,
good luck. I mean, that's what I'll say.
It's the thing is like with the Harry Potter books and Harry Potter movies, like the movies were obviously they're bigger. Like that's what it is. And but the books offer more context, right? And both are legitimate, but they're for maybe for two different audiences. But there is overlap there where, okay, I've read the books, I want to see what the movies are like, or okay, I've seen the movies, I need to know what the book's like. How does it compare? How are these different? Like, can I get a better overall view of the narrative if I consume both? So I personally think, like, as you say, if you're going more in depth and then you've got one topic, so one niche, like you're in the COD esports sphere. So it's much easier for you to drill down in those where he has to cover, what Slippers Valkyrie wore, and then like Mr. Beast's latest tweet, and then what Nadeshot said about 2 Hype. You know, like exactly. He can't offer that level of focus. So you can just offer something different and serve a different audience, and maybe also benefit from what he's doing. And
and it's not one and the same, but it's not like one or the other by any means. Like, as you say, there's an awful lot of overlap in terms of, like, I look at the analytics all the time nowadays, seeing like how many of my views came from which videos, looking at those videos, seeing like, okay, X amount of people came from Jake Lucky's video on this to my video on this, and just seeing how a lot of it, like, there's a lot of overlap, and people can see effectively the same video in 2 different places to maybe get a different perspective or a different insight. And that's very valuable, right? And I think that that's really where there's power in individual creators in that sense, as opposed to maybe like, this is the corporate's thoughts on this or whatever it might be. It doesn't feel, the opinion isn't quite as maybe, I don't know, conclusive or as powerful if it's not, if it feels much more realistic or something coming from a actual person behind the screen. I don't know.
That's fair enough. And I've got one more thing that I'd love to touch on before we wrap up, mate. And that's the level of consistency you showed. So, like, do you know the number offhand of how many days you've uploaded in a row, or how many videos in a row or anything?
It's something like, okay, so
this is where you're days in a row, like you don't know.
No, I do know, kind of, but I'm trying to think, like, is it okay? Like, the last day I missed was July the 19th, 2019, was the Friday of CWL Miami. So since then, it's been something like 540 days. And since, I think, August of last year, I've double uploaded every day at least, apart from Christmas. I only did 1 video on Christmas. So
give yourself a bit of a break. You're slacking, though, mate.
Sure.
You're not too dedicated.
I was actually quite, I wasn't sure if I should just do 1. I really wanted to do 2, but I thought it's just not worth it. The video won't get any views. People are with their family.
So with that level of consistency, like with like, I'm interested in like compounding and like momentum at the moment. Do you find it adds more pressure to do it, and it makes it feel more like a job, or does it make it easier for you?
It's actually a great question, because it's almost both in a way. Like, I don't know, it makes it feel more like a job in that sense, because I know that every day from X hour to Y hour, I'm going to be working on this.
Yeah.
But over time, it becomes it definitely becomes easier over time. And I don't know if you've read Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins.
I've listened to every podcast he's ever done, but I haven't got to the book yet.
Okay, yeah, cool. So one of the concepts he has, there's a lot of great concepts. One of the concepts I really like is called the cookie jar. And the idea of the cookie jar is that when you've achieved something, or when you're having a difficult time and you're maybe you're not motivated on this particular day, or you're struggling, he usually thinks of it in like a physical sense, right? But the idea is once you've done something once, it goes in your cookie jar. And whenever you're in a difficult spot, you can just open up the cookie jar and find the time you did that before, right? So that's kind of what it is now in a sense. Like some days you're not going to be motivated, that is how it is. But if you can still do what you've got to do, your best work on the days where you're not motivated at all, and part of that is because I've done this 540 days in a row. You think I'm missing today? Like, what do you mean, right? So like, there's just no chance you're ever getting stopped realistically at that point, because you have all that in the background that you've done all those more videos than anyone else has. Like someone else, my former self would have quit. Like 2 years ago, I wouldn't have bothered making a video on this day, or I wouldn't have bothered making two because nothing's really happened. I can make an excuse for it. But that version of me would have stopped. This version of me has done all those videos in a row and isn't going to let anything get in the way, type of thing. So that's kind of where I think the momentum aspect of it comes in. The compounding thing is interesting because obviously it's a thing, but like it doesn't necessarily work exponentially in that way all the time. So that's why I think you have to try new things, because it's not like if I keep making 2 videos a day forever, the views are just going to go like this. As much as Social Blade likes to think it will, that's not always how it goes because there's a limited audience. But I guess in terms of how much better you can be than other people on a similar path, like let's say there was someone else, or even like a parallel universe where there's me who only makes a video every 2 days or something, or whatever the case may be. Like over time, the difference between how good I am at what I do, and there's so many aspects of it which I hadn't really considered before, because it's not only how good you are speaking on camera or editing the videos or putting things together, but it's also about bringing up the most interesting storylines or just delving through the detail and finding something valuable. Like all those skills really do compound over time, and like you get a lot better at things a lot quicker, really, with consistency. So it's something which is, I think, incredibly valuable. Like if you can be consistent with something like that, or going for a run, or doing some exercise per day, like, and it's not also about, I think this is a James Clear thing from Atomic Habits, but he says it's not, which is always a good, when it starts with that, it's always good. But he says it's not about achieving the goal, it's about becoming the type of person that does achieve that goal. And I think that's one of the key things. It's not about making a video every day, it's about becoming the type of person who doesn't miss an upload. I think that once you get to that point, then your brain is hardwired for you to do it anyway.
It would feel wrong if you didn't do it. Like,
exactly, which is
as
scary,
you say, with
in a
Christmas.
way. But like, exactly. If I don't make a video on a day, like I didn't make a video on Christmas, I had the video pre-recorded, but like I woke up and went downstairs without making a video, and like I was like, am I tripping? But it's okay. But it doesn't like affect you, but it's always on your mind because it's a habit.
It's like if you just didn't brush your teeth one day in the morning or something. Your habit is you're thrown off. It's like something's not quite the same here. It's noticeable at least, right? And that's the power of doing what you've done. But anyway, mate, I've taken up enough of your time. Thank you very much for taking the time to speak to me. I know, to be transparent, like we had a call which is pretty similar to this actually, just privately. When was it? A week ago? A few days ago? Something like that.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you being willing to reiterate and for listening to me chat.
It's all incredibly valuable. Just having these type of, I guess, intellectually stimulating discussions about the future of a space that we're both involved in and, like, I guess, care about deeply, that seems so niche to maybe the rest of the world, is there's not much more enjoyable. So thank you very much.
No, of course, man. All right, and thank you everyone for watching. Again, I'm not going to ask you to subscribe, click bells and stuff. If you want to do that,
smash the like button.
Go on, smash it, and check all the links in the description box below and all of those different bits and bobs that I will hopefully never actually get into the habit of saying, though. If I was a creator that's taking it seriously, I would be all over it. But I just ain't got it in me, mate. You know, I'm trying to fight it. But thank you everyone for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.